Hello, good evening, good Woch, everyone. Pashas Kisiso, Motzi Shabbos Kisiso. You know, they say Kisisa es Rosh Bnei Israel. Elevate the head of Bnei Israel. Interesting language. What is actually, what does it mean, Nisias Rosh? What does it mean to elevate, the heads of Bnei Israel? So, I remember seeing a definition by Rav Kluger, and he says something very interesting. He says that, and this is really like, when you come to think of it, it's a basic, it's a fundament of the relationship between Am Yisrael and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. When a poor person approaches a wealthy person, needless to say, we're not talking about, if a person comes, knocks at the door, of a wealthy guy, and the wife opens the door and says he's in the shower, come tomorrow. So he comes the next day, he knocks on the door, and his wife says he's in the shower, come tomorrow. So the third day he comes, she knocks on the door, and she says, he's in the shower, come tomorrow. So the poor man says, for 3 days he's in the shower, don't you think you know how to call Hatzalah? So I'm not talking about, people being, when a wealthy person doesn't understand that his money is not his. I mean, the Torah Hazmanists that just started, the Torah Chavdalad, but on Wednesday we'll learn Torah Chav Gimel. The Chav Gimel is the beginning, the entry into, a series of amazingly mysterious and deep Torah of Rabbeinu, and it starts at the very source of Sitra Achra, the very fundament of a lie, of the Yetzer Hara, the kind of lie that actually makes people believe, but really believe, not just mouth it, but actually believe in the lives and deeds that that's the truth, is greed, is Taivas Mammon. Because Taivas Mammon is something that it's prevalent in everybody's life, and I mean, you have to work for a living. You have to have parnasa one way or another, But there's one thing, to work for a living. It's quite another thing to be greedy. Taivas Mammon is a whole different matter. We spoke about it on Wednesday, I think, when we said that Lamaisa, in American psyche, actually America is not about money as much as people would tend to think. In other words, money is not the issue. Obviously greed is involved with everything that they do. Olam Hazeh is the basis of everything they do, but it's also the basis of everything everybody else does. The greed is the pervasive issue in America. What you do is back is, as we said, what you do is who, when you meet people, he says, I don't know, it's what do you do? What do you do these days? And then, that's the first question. The second question is, where do you live? But what do you do? What are they asking when they're saying, what do you do? The answer is, when they ask you, what do you do, they actually mean to ask, who are you? As Rabbeinu says in Ma'asim about Tefillah, there is somebody who has that much money, he's considered a god, and then somebody that is has that much money is considered a star. That much money is considered a man. That much money is considered a dog. A human dog, and so forth and so on. In America, money and actually is not so much about the money as much as where you have achieved, whatever it is that you have achieved, what profession you are, whatever it is who you are, is your self-image. And in fact, money is only a way to keep the score. Money and luxury is a way to show everybody, who you are. Luxury is the proof. But if you notice in American culture, they look down upon somebody that, let's say, won the lottery. He's in the news maybe for a day or two. I don't care if he won $1 billion in the lottery. It doesn't matter. So a day or two but Americans don't make a big spritz out of him because he didn't work for it. He didn't achieve it. So he's a nothing. He's not a part of the guys who made it because he didn't make it, and he's no longer the part of who he used to be, because they only see him as a walking wallet. He can no longer be, live amongst them. So, nevertheless, greed is in all the Zohar are in the greed. You do this, you do that, you'll be able to do this, you'll have to do that. So, we're talking about the rich person who, when the poor man knocks on the door, he opens the door and he gives him money. Okay, it's very nice. There's a higher level than that, where the rich person asks either the meshulach or the poor person to come in and sit down with him, and he listens to what he has to say. He makes a decision and gives him money. Usually has a kind of system, what he's giving everyone, what he's giving to moisters that are close to his heart, or people are close to his heart, whatever it is. He has a system down pat. Of course, he has, some kind of a system, and I don't know if a system, but a healthy dose of suspicion, to keep out, the liars and cheaters, or whatever it is. Then there's a person who, brings a rich person who brings the poor person in and welcomes him really nicely. Said, sit down. Would you like something to drink? Can I give you a cup of tea or a cup of coffee? He gives him coffee with a piece of cake. He listens to him, and he gives him money. That's very nice, because he understands, that the person who comes knocking the door, he's feeling, he's very precarious, he's like very unsure of his ground. So it's sort of like you put him at his ease, which is very nice. Chazal says, that anybody who gives money to a poor person, is blessed with 6 blessings, and whoever it is that is Mesameach, the poor person is getting 11 blessings. It's a big thing. But throughout it all, it is very clear who is doing the giving and who is doing the receiving. It's very clear who needs whom. It's very clear, what the status of each of them is. No matter how nice the rich person is going to be, or how confident the meshulach or the poor person is going to be, they both know their place. Now, if a rich person wants to give the poor person or the meshulach Nesias Rosh, he wants to elevate him to his own level, what he would do is, when the meshulach or the poor person knocks on the door, and he opens up the door and he looks at him and he says, "You are just the right person I wanted to talk to you. I need your advice. Come in. Come inside. Do you want coffee? Do you want tea? Whatever it is you want. I really need your advice. I mean, I don't know what to do, and I need, and so the guy comes in and he gives him something to drink or not or whatever, and he tells him some kind of I don't know, either it's a business thing, or shidduch thing, or something to do with the children, or whatever it is, a shlom bayis thing, whatever it is. And he asks him, what do you, I don't know what to do. What is your advice? And the poor person or the meshulach, tells him whatever he tells him. By telling the receiver that he needs him, it puts them in a certain level on an even keel. On they're both givers, they're both receivers. This is called Nesias Rosh. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Sas Rosh B'nai Yisrael," and take half a shekel from each one of them, and it won't be a negative. The deep secret, Reb Nosson says, in this Machzis HaShekel, because he says, count them and let them give half a shekel each one. The rich won't give more, the poor cannot give less, and that's the way you count them. He says, why do you have to count them? He says, because if you count them outright and not count the half shkolim, then chas v'chalila they may be hit with a plague. There's klala in the mispar, in the counting. So comes the question: why count them at all? If counting is so problematic. Reb Nosson explains that it comes to the fact that half a shekel, counting Bnei Yisrael, counting is when things are no longer one. It's no longer the undifferentiated level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is already, HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Bria. That denotes constriction, tzimtzum. It means there is a relationship. In order for you to have a relationship with anybody in your life, it could be your wife, it could be your children, it could be anybody else. In fact, it has to be even yourself. You have to constrict yourself and let the other person, give them room to breathe, room to grow, room to express themselves. Each and every one of us is a separate being. We have different names. We're different people. Each and every one of us has something unique to give. This is why these have to be counted. It means that you not only that you need not to rush up to Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's a horror of Peniel Sula Alot El Hashem. And Am Yisrael will run up the Har Sinai, because the excitement of getting closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu is so, the burning, the desire is infinite. They can hurt themselves. This is what Torah Havdalah, the new Torah Zmanis is about. But also between one Yid and another, every Yid has his own boundaries. Don't be overbearing. Don't breach the boundaries of your fellow Jew. First of all, of your wife, of course. Don't breach the boundaries of your kids. Don't. So the main things when a Kodesh Baruch Hu is telling them, so okay, Nesas Rosh B'nai Yisrael, elevate B'nai Yisrael, means create an equality between you. Everybody has his own place. Everybody is important, all his own. And on his own, respect that. Ultimately, this is the basis of the relationship Kodesh Baruch Hu with Am Yisrael, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Am Yisrael, I want you to understand that you need me. You can't live without me, obviously. Right? I need you. Because without you, I'm not a king. I mean, the only profession, the only, I don't know, whatever it is you want to call it, that a person has no value in on its own, is a king. A chacham, even if he doesn't show his chacham, he doesn't let others enjoy the fruits of his wisdom. Okay, he's being self-centered, he's egotistical, whatever it is, but he's still a chacham. Same thing is somebody who's a gibor, he's mighty. He's a mighty guy, and he doesn't show it to anybody. He's humble. He doesn't want to show everybody that he's a circus strongman, whatever it is that he is. Okay, he's still a gibor. But the melech was sitting in a cave. Is not a melech. All alone. There's no. Where's your kingdom? Where are your people? Well, I don't have any people. Well, if you don't have any people, you're not a melech. So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, I need you. There's no bigger Nesias Rosh than that. Okay. Up to now with a little bit of the parsha that we lived through today. Excuse me, all right. We'll see, being that this is really short. Well, I think this is something that we already... Okay, we're going to read a couple of stories of the Baal Shemtov. B'ezrat Hashem, it's a bracha for the entire week to say stories of the Baal Shemtov, a tzaddik, Yisod Olam. It says, our teacher Baal Shemtov said, Mama Chazal, Kol Torah she'eni mamalacha, any Torah that is bereft, that is not hip, it's joined at the hip, with a malacha, soifa b'tela, and then it becomes bottled, becomes nullified. Now, melacha, what does melacha mean? Hashem says melacha means to be misasek, to be busy, to deal with. It says kol Torah she'en ima melacha. He says any Torah doesn't have with it the effort, the melacha in Ahavas Yisrael, soifa b'tela. It end to be cancelled out, to be nullified. Every shtickle Torah that you learn that doesn't bring you to Malacha, in other words, it doesn't bring you to Ahavas Yisrael. Ahavas Yisrael is not something that you're usually born with. Some people have bigger, propensity for Ahavas Yisrael. But nevertheless, I have softer heart and so forth. But nevertheless, ultimately, it's about me. To develop Ahavas Yisrael, to develop sensitivity in Ahavas Yisrael is a malacha. It says any Torah shtickle that you learn that is not joined to the hip with an increase in effort in Ahavas Yisrael. It says Nishkan Torah. It says this is one of the three Torahs that the Goyen HaTzadik of Levi Yitzchak from Berditchev, that he heard from the Baal Shemtov, and it made an incredible iserus in his holy neshama, and that drove him, famously, to this his holy avodah of the, he's the defender of Am Yisrael. He's the lawyer of Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael is a serious nefesh, to be mamletz tov, to learn good things and to show the good sides of every Jew and every single Jew, that he was zeichet to put it in Hechal of Sichos. So now we'll tell a story. Once they asked Baal Shemtov. Baal Shemtov asked for one of his talmidim to bring him a kosher wine that is kosher and is watched over with all the hidurim, all the chumras from Bessarabia. It's a land of Bessarabia. Whatever it is, like with everything that Baal Shem HaKadosh used to do, with this, obviously he had a reason to why he was doing this. And this shlichus was put on the shoulders of his Talmud, Reb David from Mikolaev. That's one of his Talmidim. So Reb David took this chore with Chilur Chimu, and he went to this town in Bessarabia to a Mikayim, what Baal Shem Tov said. For 2 months, he kept an eagle's eye on every single detail of the winemaking and in its keeping. So it will be fit to come up on the table of the Baal Shem Tov. He was there when the grapes were bought. He himself, he went through to get together with the wagon that brought the grapes to the winery. He was there when the grapes were stepped on, and where they were kept in kalim, and all the different melacha that had to do with that, and all those he kept watch without being Meser's Das. He didn't divert his eyes for a minute. And he made sure that the melacha was done only with from kosher yidden, really elech yidden. When the wine, the grape juice became wine, it fermented, became wine, and the clear liquid, was brought into a barrel. Reb David went through the entire malacha, of putting in the barrel to guard this precious wine. So the kosher mehadrin sheba mehadrin. And because of this great responsibility that he took upon himself, and the awe of he had from his Rebbe, it's like I say, Yemara Rabcha Alecha Kimare Shemaim, says Pikavas. We should fear your Rebbe like you fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like so Reb David felt in these weeks like somebody that the king himself giving a command, an incredibly big and important command, and he has to see it being done in the best way possible. No. Now the day came and they're bringing the barrel of wine to Mezhibos. And then Reb David was absolutely excited. The Chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu already did with him, that the wine, Baruch Hashem, came, to be ready. And the great care and the responsibility of bringing the wine to its destiny, the way it should be. Now the days were winter days. There were snows and rains. The roads were muddy. Winds. It was very difficult. The trip was actually a dangerous trip. Reb David worked really, really hard in guarding the wine, also in these, difficult ways. Finally, he gets with the wagon of this kosher wine to Mezhibos. Reb David felt he's like the happiest person on earth. He was able to be Mekayim the mitzvah of his Rebbe after long weeks of hard work. Oh Hashem, he brought it to the place. And he looked up to Shemaim and he thanked the Kadosh Baruch Hu that he was able to be mitzliach with that. He's already started, envisioning with great simcha Baal Shem HaKadosh, the menorah Kedoshah of entire Am Yisrael will look at him with chedva, with toiva, Then came the oops moment. In front of the wagon came a big soldier. Big, big guy. A guy riding on a horse. And he blocked the way, and he didn't let the wagon come through. He said, "Oh, stop and open up this barrel for inspection." The feudal lord doesn't let any beer be brought in from different places. Open up the barrel for checkup. So David became frantic. He says, "Don't touch the barrel. It doesn't have any beer. It has wine. It's a pure wine from my Rebbe. You don't have what to worry about. I don't have any beer. I'm not going to transgress, whatever the feudal lord said, the landlord, landowner has to say." But the big soldier simply would not listen. He wanted to check what the barrel had by himself. He jumped from the horse, opened up the cover of the barrel. He looked at the wine, dipped his finger in the wine, and tasted. And he said, "You're right. This is pure wine. It's not beer. You're free to go." David was staggered. The Goyish soldier touched the wine. The entire wine is possible. It's called Yain Nesech, it's called, Stam Yainam, whatever it is. That's not the wine that Baal Shemtov wanted. Literally months, he's working on every single detail of this wine. The fermentation, the transfer, keeping it, in a few, literally a few feet away from the house of Baal Shemtov, the wine becomes possible. When he saw the face of Baal Shemtov, he started crying. And he says, "The Tzaddik Rebbe, I worked so hard for months. I toiled so hard. I was so makpid every single stage, Mesiris Nefesh Mamish. And the wine got possible at the very last moment, a few minutes before it arrived at destination. Why did it happen to me? What was I punished for?" He cried, he mamish cried. Shemtov calmed the student down. He says, "You should know, my dear Talmud, you have worked, you toiled with total Mesiris Nefesh. You toiled beyond your koiches. But you forgot the main thing. You forgot to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be Matzliach what you did. That he should guard you from the very beginning to the very end. David HaMelech already said, Im Hashem lo yishmor ir, if Hashem will not guard a city, shav shakat shamayim. No amount of guards will ever keep it safe. This is the Sichos Baal Shemtov for this week. Let's take a quick, B'ezrat Hashem, Sichos Haran, all be blessed with a great week. B'zchus the Baal Shem HaKadosh. Let's get the Sichos Haran. We have a couple of Sichos that are all like one thing. Well, 108, this is what we learned last week. It's known that Limon the Zohar is very misugal, and it's very auspicious to get cheshek to learn all kinds of, all the Torah. And the great praises that the Zohar says about a person who is zeicher, to serve Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the great loss of somebody who is not zeicher Hashem, neshama that strays away from Kadosh Baruch Hu. All these expressions are very, very me'or to Hashem Yisbarach. And now in Sicha Kuftes is 109. Rabbeinu says, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Kiddush Kol Kach as a Shon Targum, he sanctified the language, the Aramaic, to such an extent, even other things that are written in Aramaic, not the Zohar, they have koyach to wake a Jew to Avodas Hashem. The koyach of the Zohar is totally and absolutely immense. Rabbeinu says that Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was misaken the entire lashon, the entire language was sanctified. So it's very interesting that right after this, the next Sicha, let's take a look at the next Sicha, already talks about one of the manifestation of Targum. Rabbeinu says in Torah Yotes that Lashon Targum is the same numerical value of Tardema, which is slumber, which is sleep. Targum has part of it, it represents the Klipas Noiga, the separator between the holiness and defilement. In between, there's like a middle ground of good and bad mixed together. And this is the proving ground where you separate the bad from the good, and you elevate the good, up, and the bad falls down by itself. And if you get caught up in the moment, in the Olam Hazadik aspect of the here and now, then the bad actually brings down the good, gives koyach to the defilement. And Rabbeinu says, Yesh, in chapter 110, Yesh kama shtusim vebilbulim hamisdabkim umischabrim b'moyach. There are quite a few nonsense, shtuyot, confusions that stick to a person's mind, especially bilbula emuna, confusion of emuna. The asheino nifrodim me'amoyach. And by sleep, these will leave the brain. And sleep is very beneficial that way. We all know, and we all been there, done that, when you have a certain kind of a notion, a bilbul, you become afraid of something. Maybe this will happen, maybe that will happen. And emuna, suddenly something gets into your mind. It feels like a dibuk. You can get out of it. It's just with you. And people around you don't notice anything, but you are like, whoa, I can't believe this is going on. Like, people feel that You know, Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't care about me. People get to feel, to feel like that. Something happened, something this, something that, and boom, it gets into a person's mind, and it sticks. Like tar. And just like you can't get rid of it. You're trying to explain it to yourself, man, this is nonsense, but it doesn't leave you. Rabbeinu says that sleep, that's the right thing to do in order to separate it. Because sleep is Tardema, is Targum, is the Lashon of the Zohar. This is the proving ground. So if when you are the Seichel itself was captured in a confusion, in a bilbul, in a whatever it is, go to sleep. Come to Kodesh Baruch says, you know what's going on in my mind. I can possibly, extricate it. I'm in it. I don't know. It's like a. I don't know. I don't know what to do about it. So what I'm going to do is, b'yodcha afkid ruchi. I'm going to deposit my ruach in your hands. That's what we do when we go to sleep. And B'ezrat Hashem in the morning, you give me back my neshama, that it's clean, it's separated from the bad, so this mishigas, this craziness, this confusion, will leave me alone. If you go to sleep like that, B'ezrat Hashem, the Sheina will separate, will weaken the doesn't become so enmeshed in your mind. You can just disregard it, and B'ezrat Hashem continue. But Simcha, I want to wish each and every one of you a good week, a wonderful week, and B'ezrat Hashem, on Monday we will learn Sipurey Baal. Whoever it is that can make it is the biggie benched in everything that you do.